Rachel hurried up the steps to her front door, her heart racing with a mix of guilt and anticipation. She had spent the evening with Michael, her lover of 6 months, enjoying stolen moments of passion in a cozy apartment on the outskirts of town. But now, as she stood on the threshold of her home, dread gnawed at her insides. Pushing the door open, she flicked on the lights, expecting to find the familiar warmth of their shared space. Instead, silence greeted her, a hollow echo that sent a shiver down her spine. "Daniel," she called out, her voice wavering with unease. No answer came. Her eyes darted to the television screen, where a playback of her recent indiscretions played out in vivid detail. There she was, entangled with Michael, her face flushed with desire, oblivious to the camera that captured every intimate moment. The footage was overlaid with mocking text. "Look, your wife likes big ones. She told your thing is tiny." Rachel's breath caught in her throat as the implications sank in. Michael, whom she had trusted with her desires, had betrayed her with this calculated act of revenge. Her hands trembled as she reached for the remote, but the video continued to loop, each repetition driving the knife of humiliation deeper into her heart. Unable to tear her gaze away, she sank onto the couch, feeling the weight of her choices press down upon her. How could she have been so careless, so blind to the consequences? Her mind raced, searching for a way to explain, to justify, but the damning evidence before her left no room for excuses. Hours passed in a blur of disbelief and despair. The house around her felt alien, stripped bare of the life they had built together over the past decade. Family photos, now conspicuously absent from their frames, mocked her with their absence. Every corner whispered accusations of betrayal. As dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Rachel remained seated on the couch, numb with shock and shame. Her phone buzzed incessantly with messages she couldn't bring herself to read. Friends, perhaps former friends now, asking questions she couldn't answer. How could she face them, knowing they had likely seen the video too? With a trembling hand, she finally silenced the notifications and stared at the blank screen. The weight of her actions pressed down upon her, threatening to suffocate her with regret. She had risked everything, her marriage, her reputation, her future, for the fleeting thrill of passion. But the price she now paid was steep. Daniel, her husband of 30 years, had always been the steady anchor in her tumultuous life. A successful businessman with a penchant for order and predictability, he had provided stability while she sought excitement elsewhere. And now, in one cruel twist of fate, she had shattered everything they had built together. A knock at the door startled her out of her reverie. Rachel's heart leaped into her throat, fearing the worst, a confrontation she wasn't ready to face. But when she cautiously opened the door, there was no one there. Only a small package wrapped in plain brown paper lying on the doorstep. Her hands trembling, Rachel picked up the package and brought it inside. It was light, almost weightless in her grasp, yet it seemed to carry the weight of her husband's wrath. With trembling fingers, she peeled away the tape and opened the box. Inside lay a single USB drive, accompanied by a note written in Daniel's unmistakable handwriting, "For your eyes only." Rachel's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the innocuous device. What secrets did it hold? What further revelations awaited her, lurking in the shadows of her shattered life? She hesitated, her mind racing with fear and curiosity. Should she dare to uncover the truth, to confront the depths of her husband's betrayal? Or was it better to bury the past, to pretend that this nightmare had never begun? But deep down, Rachel knew there was no turning back. Whatever lay on that USB drive would determine the course of her future, a future that now hung in precarious balance, torn between love and lust, regret and redemption. With a resolve born of desperation, she inserted the USB drive into her laptop and waited as the screen flickered to life. Lines of code scrolled across the monitor, decrypting the files that would reveal the next chapter in her unraveling tale. As she watched, her heart pounding in her chest, Rachel braced herself for the truth, a truth that would either set her free or condemn her to a lifetime of regret. Rachel sat in their once cozy living room, now a cold shell of its former self, staring blankly at the blank television screen. The USB drive lay next to her laptop, its presence a constant reminder of the looming unknown. Her mind raced with questions, doubts, and a sinking realization of the consequences that awaited her. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting shadows that danced eerily across the room. With trembling hands, Rachel picked up her phone, the screen still lit with notifications from the night before. Messages from friends, colleagues, and distant relatives flooded her inbox, each one carrying a mix of shock, pity, and judgment. She ignored them all, unable to face the scrutiny and shame that awaited her outside these walls. Instead, she focused on the pressing matter at hand, the USB drive and its encrypted contents. With a deep breath, she powered up her laptop and inserted the drive, bracing herself for what lay ahead. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of encrypted files. Rachel's heart pounded in her chest as she clicked on the first file, watching as lines of code scrolled across the screen. Minutes stretched into hours as she deciphered the documents, each one unraveling a new layer of her husband's meticulously planned retaliation. The first document revealed transfers of funds, large sums withdrawn from their joint accounts and routed to offshore accounts in tax havens she had never heard of. The transactions were dated just hours after the video had been sent, a damning testament to Daniel's swift and calculated response to her betrayal. Rachel's hands trembled as she scrolled through the evidence, her mind struggling to comprehend the extent of Daniel's actions. How could he have been so cold, so methodical in dismantling their life together? The financial devastation was staggering. Years of hard-earned savings, investments, and assets, all gone in the blink of an eye. But it wasn't just their financial security that Daniel had targeted. The next set of documents revealed legal notices, divorce papers filed in multiple jurisdictions, each one citing adultery and irreconcilable differences. Rachel's breath caught in her throat as she read through the allegations, her own actions laid bare for the world to see. The implications were clear. Daniel intended to strip her of everything, not just materially but socially and legally as well. The divorce proceedings were not just a formality but a strategic maneuver to ensure she bore the full brunt of their public scandal. Her reputation, her career, her very identity, everything was at stake. As the reality of her situation sank in, Rachel felt a wave of despair wash over her. How had it come to this? She had been foolish, reckless, driven by a desire for excitement and validation outside her marriage. Now, she was paying the ultimate price for her moment of weakness. The afternoon stretched into evening as Rachel continued to pore over the documents, each one a fresh wound in her already battered heart. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that crept across the empty room. Outside, the world carried on, oblivious to the turmoil unfolding within these walls. With a heavy heart, Rachel closed her laptop, the weight of her husband's betrayal pressing down upon her. She had lost not just her marriage but her sense of self, her dignity, her integrity, everything that had once defined her. And now, as darkness settled in around her, she faced a future fraught with uncertainty and regret. But amidst the despair, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She couldn't change the past or undo the damage she had caused, but she could choose how to face the future. She could either succumb to despair or find the strength to rebuild her life from the ashes of her mistakes. With a deep breath, Rachel stood up, her resolve firming with each step. She would fight for her dignity, for her future, for a chance to reclaim the pieces of herself she had lost along the way. The road ahead would be long and arduous, fraught with challenges and obstacles, but she refused to let her husband's betrayal define her. As she looked out into the night, a sense of determination settled over her like a cloak. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new revelations, and new choices to be made. But for now, in this quiet moment of solitude, Rachel found solace in the simple act of standing tall and facing the uncertain future that lay ahead. The morning after discovering the extent of her husband's retaliation, Rachel woke to a house that felt emptier than ever before. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional chirp of a bird outside. She moved through the rooms like a ghost, her footsteps echoing hollowly against the polished hardwood floors. Every corner held a memory, photographs that once adorned the walls, now absent, trinkets collected from their travels, now missing from their shelves. The absence of these personal touches left the house feeling sterile, stripped of the warmth and familiarity that had once defined it as their home. In the bedroom, Rachel stood before the closet, staring at rows of empty hangers that swayed gently in the breeze from an open window. Daniel had taken not just his own clothes, but hers as well, leaving behind a gaping void where their shared wardrobe had once stood. The scent of his cologne lingered faintly in the air, a bittersweet reminder of happier times now lost to her. She moved to the dresser, her fingers brushing over the smooth surface that once held their wedding rings, now gone, along with any trace of their decades-long partnership. Tears stung her eyes as she reached for a drawer that once held love letters exchanged during their courtship, now emptied and pristine. The ache in her chest deepened as she realized how thoroughly Daniel had erased their shared history from this place. Rachel sank onto the edge of the bed, her emotions a turbulent storm raging within her. She felt abandoned, not just by her husband but by the life they had built together, the dreams, the promises, the shared moments that now seemed like distant echoes of another lifetime. How could it all have unraveled so swiftly, so completely? The hours passed in a blur of numbness and grief. She wandered from room to room, searching for remnants of their life together, only to find each space meticulously cleansed of their presence. The kitchen, once filled with the aromas of shared meals and laughter, now smelled faintly of disinfectant and solitude. The living room, where they had spent countless evenings curled up on the couch, now felt cavernous and cold. Outside, the world carried on its indifferent rhythm, cars whizzing past, neighbors going about their daily routines, oblivious to the turmoil that gripped Rachel's heart. She felt adrift, untethered from the life she had known, grappling with a sense of loss that extended far beyond the material possessions now gone. As twilight descended, casting long shadows across the floor, Rachel found herself drawn to the backyard, the one place that had always offered solace during times of uncertainty. She stepped onto the patio, the cool breeze ruffling her hair as she gazed out at the familiar garden now overgrown and neglected. A pang of sorrow gripped her as she surveyed the flower beds Daniel had lovingly tended, now choked with weeds and neglect. The swing they had installed together creaked softly in the breeze, a haunting reminder of happier times when their biggest concern had been which movie to watch on a lazy Sunday afternoon. Rachel lowered herself onto the swing, the chains groaning softly under her weight. She closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of respite from the chaos swirling around her. Memories flooded her mind. Their first date, Daniel's nervous laughter as he proposed, the joyous tears they had shed at their children's graduations. But beneath the surface of these cherished memories lurked darker shadows, the doubts, the insecurities, the cracks that had begun to form in their marriage long before she had sought solace in Michael's arms. She had convinced herself that their love was invincible, that their bond could weather any storm. Now, she realized how fragile it had truly been. The swing swayed gently, a soothing rhythm that matched the tumultuous beat of her heart. Rachel clung to the familiarity of this simple motion, finding a semblance of peace amid the wreckage of her shattered dreams. She had lost more than material possessions. She had lost her sense of belonging, her anchor in a world suddenly turned upside down. As stars began to twinkle overhead, casting a soft glow over the garden, Rachel felt a flicker of determination stir within her. With a deep breath, Rachel pushed herself gently on the swing, each arc carrying her closer to acceptance and resilience. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations, and new opportunities to rebuild her life on her own terms. For now, in the quiet solitude of her backyard, she found solace in the simple act of surrendering to the healing embrace of time. The morning after the video surfaced, Rachel ventured cautiously into the outside world, hoping against hope that somehow, things might not be as bad as they seemed. But the moment she stepped out of her front door, the weight of reality crashed down upon her with a brutal force. The neighborhood that had once been a friendly enclave of familiar faces now felt like a gauntlet of judgmental stares and whispered conversations that ceased abruptly as she passed by. The air itself seemed to hum with unspoken accusations, leaving Rachel feeling exposed and vulnerable. At the local coffee shop where she had been a regular for years, the barista avoided her gaze as she fumbled with her order. The usual friendly banter was replaced by uncomfortable silence, punctuated only by the awkward clinking of cups and the distant murmur of other customers. She felt the weight of their stares burning into her back as she hurried out, clutching her coffee like a lifeline. The warmth of the cup did nothing to dispel the chill that settled over her, a chill born of the realization that she was no longer welcome in the place she had once considered a second home. The same pattern repeated itself throughout the day, at the grocery store, where familiar faces averted their eyes, at the gym, where whispered conversations ceased abruptly as she entered, even at the park, where mothers gathered in tight-knit groups, casting furtive glances in her direction. Rachel felt as though she were living in a nightmare from which she couldn't wake. The friends she had trusted, the colleagues she had worked alongside for years, all now treated her like a pariah, their discomfort palpable in every strained interaction. As the day wore on, Rachel retreated further into herself, seeking refuge in the solitude of her empty home. She ignored the incessant buzzing of her phone, knowing that each notification carried with it a reminder of her shattered reputation. Messages from friends she had once considered confidants now lay unread, their contents too painful to face. But amidst the sea of rejection, there were a few voices that dared to defy the tide. Lisa, a longtime friend and neighbor, appeared at her doorstep later that afternoon, her expression a mix of concern and compassion. "Rachel, are you okay?" Lisa asked softly, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "I heard what happened. I can't believe Daniel would do something like this." Rachel blinked back tears, overwhelmed by Lisa's unexpected kindness. She hadn't realized how desperately she had needed a friend until Lisa stood before her, offering a lifeline amidst the storm of ostracism. "I don't know what to do," Rachel admitted, her voice breaking with emotion. "Everyone is treating me like I'm some kind of monster." Lisa reached out and squeezed her hand gently. "People can be cruel, especially when they don't understand the whole story. But you don't have to go through this alone. We're here for you, Rachel." The simple gesture of solidarity brought Rachel to tears. For the first time since the scandal broke, she allowed herself to lean on someone else, to admit the depth of her pain and uncertainty. Lisa's presence was a beacon of hope in the darkness that threatened to engulf her. Over the days that followed, Rachel clung to the few friendships that remained steadfast in the face of adversity. Lisa and a handful of others became her lifeline, offering support and understanding when the rest of the world seemed intent on tearing her down. But despite their unwavering support, Rachel struggled to maintain a semblance of normalcy in her professional life. At work, where she had once been respected for her dedication and competence, she now found herself relegated to the outskirts of office conversations, her contributions met with strained politeness and thinly veiled skepticism. Her colleagues, too, had heard the rumors, seen the video, and drawn their own conclusions. The once vibrant office environment now felt stifling and suffocating, a constant reminder of the professional reputation she had spent years building, now tarnished beyond repair. Rachel threw herself into her work with renewed determination, hoping to prove herself worthy of the respect she had lost. But each small victory was overshadowed by the pervasive sense of judgment that followed her everywhere, a lingering stain on her professional integrity that seemed impossible to erase. As weeks turned into months, Rachel found herself at a crossroads. The social ostracism had taken its toll, leaving her weary and disheartened. She had fought so hard to maintain her dignity, her sense of self-worth, but the weight of public scrutiny threatened to crush her spirit. One evening, as she sat alone in her darkened living room, the silence broken only by the soft hum of the air conditioner, Rachel reflected on the choices that had led her to this point. She had made mistakes, she acknowledged, but did they truly define who she was? The question lingered unanswered in the stillness of the night. Rachel knew that rebuilding her reputation would be a slow and arduous process, one that required not only resilience but also forgiveness, both from others and from herself. But as she stared out into the darkness, a flicker of determination ignited within her. She couldn't change the past or undo the mistakes that had brought her to this moment. But she could choose how to face the future, to rise above the judgment and reclaim the pieces of herself that she had lost along the way. With renewed resolve, Rachel vowed to forge ahead, one step at a time, toward a future where her worth was defined not by the opinions of others, but by the strength of her character and the courage to rebuild what had been shattered. Weeks had passed since Rachel had found herself thrust into a world of scandal and isolation. She had retreated into a routine of work and solitude, clinging to the few friendships that had weathered the storm alongside her. Each day brought new challenges, new battles to prove herself worthy of the trust she had lost. One quiet afternoon, as she sat at her desk sorting through paperwork that seemed to multiply with each passing hour, the doorbell rang, a sound that sent a jolt of apprehension through her weary frame. Who could it be now? She wondered, her mind racing with possibilities both hopeful and fearful. Rachel hesitated before answering, her heart pounding in her chest as she approached the door with cautious steps. Through the frosted glass, she caught a glimpse of a delivery person standing patiently on the other side, a small package wrapped in plain brown paper cradled in their arms. Taking a deep breath, Rachel opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise as she accepted the package with trembling hands. There was no return address, no indication of who had sent it, only a single cryptic note attached to the outside. She closed the door behind her and sank onto the couch, the package resting heavily in her lap. With shaking fingers, she unfolded the note, her eyes scanning the brief message scrawled in her husband's unmistakable handwriting. For your eyes only. Trust no one. The words sent a chill down Rachel's spine. What could Daniel possibly have to say to her now, after everything that had transpired between them? She hesitated, torn between curiosity and fear of what further revelations awaited her. Gathering her courage, Rachel tore open the package, her breath catching as she pulled out a small USB drive nestled within. It was identical to the one Daniel had sent her weeks earlier, promising secrets that had shattered her world into pieces. She stared at the USB drive, her mind racing with questions. What more could there be to uncover about her husband's plans, his motives for orchestrating her downfall? And why had he chosen now, of all times, to reveal these secrets to her? With trembling hands, Rachel inserted the USB drive into her laptop, her heart pounding in anticipation. The screen flickered to life, displaying a series of encrypted files much like the one she had decrypted before. Lines of code scrolled across the monitor, tantalizingly hinting at the deeper truths hidden within. As she worked to decrypt the files, Rachel's thoughts drifted back to the life she had once known, a life built on trust, love, and shared dreams with Daniel. How had it all gone so wrong, she wondered, her heart heavy with regret for the choices that had led her to this moment. The first file revealed financial transactions, more transfers of funds, this time to accounts in jurisdictions known for their secrecy and anonymity. The amounts were staggering, far surpassing what Rachel had uncovered before. It was clear that Daniel's actions went beyond mere retaliation. They were part of a carefully orchestrated plan with far-reaching consequences. But it wasn't just the financial revelations that shook Rachel to her core. The subsequent files unveiled a trail of communications, emails, text messages, even recorded conversations, detailing Daniel's interactions with individuals whose identities remained shrouded in mystery. As she delved deeper, Rachel began to piece together a narrative of deception and betrayal that extended far beyond her own actions. Daniel had been playing a dangerous game, one that had ensnared them both in a web of lies and deceit. But amidst the chaos of revelations, one file stood out, a video, much like the one Michael had sent to Daniel, but with a crucial difference. This video wasn't of Rachel and Michael. It was of Daniel himself, engaged in intimate moments with another woman, a woman whose face Rachel recognized all too well. Her breath caught in her throat as she watched the footage unfold, her mind struggling to process the implications. Had Daniel been unfaithful too, she wondered, or was there more to this than met the eye? The revelation of Daniel's own infidelity rocked Rachel to her core. It was a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that while she had sought solace outside their marriage, he had been engaged in his own deceitful affairs. But the video was just the beginning, a breadcrumb that hinted at deeper, darker truths lurking beneath the surface of their shattered lives. With her world unraveling around her, Rachel knew she couldn't continue stumbling blindly through the labyrinth of lies and betrayal that Daniel had constructed. She needed answers, real answers, not just fragments of half-truths and speculation. And there was only one person she trusted to uncover those answers, a private investigator. It was a decision she made with a mix of trepidation and determination. The investigator she chose came highly recommended, a seasoned professional with a reputation for discretion and tenacity. Rachel met with him in a nondescript office downtown, her hands trembling as she laid bare the details of her tumultuous marriage and the events that had led to its collapse. "I need to know everything," Rachel said, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging within her. "I need to understand why Daniel did what he did, what he's been hiding from me all these years." The investigator nodded solemnly, his expression unreadable behind a pair of wire-framed glasses. "I'll start by delving into his background, his business dealings, his personal connections. We'll leave no stone unturned." Over the weeks that followed, the investigator immersed himself in Daniel's world, meticulously tracing his steps through a maze of financial records, corporate filings, and personal connections. What he uncovered was a tangled web of deceit and betrayal, far more intricate than Rachel could have imagined. The first clue came from Daniel's business dealings, a series of transactions that seemed innocuous at first glance, but revealed a pattern of secrecy and manipulation. Offshore accounts, shell companies, transactions designed to obscure rather than illuminate the true extent of Daniel's wealth and influence. But it was the personal connections that proved most damning. The investigator unearthed a network of individuals, business associates, acquaintances, even old friends, each with their own ties to Daniel's hidden world. Some were complicit in his schemes, others unwitting pawns in a game whose rules remained elusive. As the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place, Rachel found herself confronting uncomfortable truths about the man she had once loved. Daniel's actions weren't just about revenge or betrayal. They were about power and control, about protecting secrets that threatened to unravel everything he had worked so hard to build. But amidst the darkness, there were moments of unexpected clarity. The investigator uncovered a series of encrypted emails exchanged between Daniel and a mysterious figure, a figure whose identity remained elusive despite their pivotal role in orchestrating Rachel's downfall. Driven by a relentless pursuit of truth, the investigator followed each lead with dogged determination, uncovering a trail of breadcrumbs that led to unexpected places. Connections emerged, old rivalries, buried grudges, alliances forged in the shadows of corporate boardrooms and lavish social gatherings. And then, just when Rachel thought she had reached a dead end, a breakthrough, a name, whispered in hushed tones by a reluctant informant, a name that sent a chill down her spine and set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The investigator's findings painted a portrait of Daniel that was both familiar and foreign, a man driven not just by ambition but by a deep-seated fear of exposure, of losing everything he had worked so hard to achieve. His actions had been calculated, his motives obscured by layers of deception and self-preservation. As Rachel sifted through the investigator's findings, she felt a mix of relief and anguish. Relief at finally understanding the truth behind Daniel's actions, and anguish at the realization of how deeply she had been deceived. But amidst the turmoil, there was a glimmer of hope, a resolve to reclaim her life and forge a path forward, no matter the cost. Armed with newfound knowledge, Rachel knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties. But she also knew that she was no longer alone, that she had allies, both unexpected and steadfast, who would stand by her side as she confronted the demons of her past and charted a course toward a future defined not by betrayal, but by resilience and redemption. In the aftermath of uncovering her husband's intricate web of deception, Rachel found herself adrift in a turbulent sea of emotions. Regret, anger, and fear tangled together, each vying for dominance in the turmoil of her heart and mind. Regret weighed heavily upon her. She replayed the moments of her affair with Michael, each memory a sharp pang of guilt and shame. What had begun as a fleeting escape from the monotony of her marriage had spiraled into a cataclysmic chain of events, leaving devastation in its wake. She mourned not only for the trust she had shattered, but also for the irreparable damage inflicted upon her family. Anger simmered beneath the surface, a volatile mix of resentment toward Daniel's vindictive retaliation and herself for being drawn into a web of deceit. How could he have orchestrated such a calculated downfall? She wondered, his actions revealing a darkness she had never glimpsed in their decades together. The betrayal cut deep, leaving wounds that festered with each new revelation. Fear gripped Rachel like a vice, its tendrils creeping into every corner of her fractured existence. Fear of the unknown, of what lay ahead as she navigated the treacherous terrain of divorce and social ostracism. Fear of losing her sense of self amid the wreckage of her shattered marriage, of becoming defined solely by the mistakes that had brought her to this precipice. Each discovery unearthed new complexities in Rachel's understanding of love, trust, and the consequences of her choices. She had believed, naively perhaps, that love was an unbreakable bond, a fortress impervious to the temptations of betrayal. But now, as she sifted through the wreckage of her marriage, she realized that love was fragile, its strength tested not just by external forces but by the frailties within. Trust, once a cornerstone of her relationship with Daniel, now lay shattered beyond repair. The lies and deceit had eroded the foundation of their marriage, leaving behind a void where once there had been intimacy and shared dreams. Rachel grappled with the bitter irony of her own betrayal. The affair with Michael had been a misguided attempt to reclaim what she had lost with Daniel, only to realize too late the cost of her actions. The consequences of her choices reverberated through every aspect of her life, casting a shadow over her career, her friendships, and her sense of self-worth. She felt adrift, untethered from the woman she had once been, struggling to reconcile the person she had become with the ideals she had once held dear. But amidst the emotional turmoil, Rachel clung to a flicker of hope, a belief that redemption was possible, that she could emerge from the ashes of her past stronger and more resilient than before. She sought solace in moments of quiet reflection, in the unwavering support of a few loyal friends who refused to abandon her in her darkest hour. As she navigated the complexities of rebuilding her life, Rachel confronted her own vulnerabilities with a newfound courage. She acknowledged her mistakes, confronted her demons, and embraced the painful process of self-forgiveness. Each step forward was a testament to her resilience, a declaration that she would not be defined by the mistakes of her past, but by the strength and grace with which she faced the uncertain future. And as she stood on the precipice of what lay ahead, Rachel found herself embracing the complexities of love and trust with a newfound wisdom. She knew now that true healing would require more than just time. It would demand courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to reclaiming the fragments of her shattered heart. The days stretched into weeks as Rachel wrestled with the tumultuous emotions that threatened to consume her. With each passing moment, the need for closure gnawed at her, a visceral ache that refused to be ignored. She had faced the depths of her own betrayals, unraveled the intricacies of Daniel's deception, but one question lingered like a shadow over her fractured existence. Why? Armed with newfound resolve, Rachel reached out to Daniel, requesting a meeting to confront him face to face. She needed answers, not just for herself, but for the shattered remnants of their once solid marriage. They met in a quiet corner of their favorite cafe, a place that held echoes of happier times, of stolen moments and whispered promises. But now, the air between them crackled with tension, laden with unspoken accusations and the weight of unspoken truths. Daniel's face betrayed no hint of remorse as he settled into his seat, his expression a mask of detached indifference. He had always been adept at hiding his emotions, Rachel thought bitterly, even now when their lives lay in ruins around them. "Rachel," he said finally, his voice calm and measured, "to what do I owe the pleasure of this meeting?" His words cut through her like a knife, a stark reminder of the distance that had grown between them. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the confrontation that lay ahead. "I want to know why," Rachel began, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "Why did you do it, Daniel? Why did you go to such lengths to destroy everything we built together?" Daniel's gaze flickered briefly, a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability before he schooled his features into stoic composure. "I did what I had to do," he replied evenly. "You made your choices, Rachel. You betrayed me." The accusation hung in the air between them, a stark reminder of the wounds that festered beneath the surface. Rachel's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms as she fought to contain the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm her. "I never wanted any of this," she countered, her voice trembling with raw intensity. "Yes, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But what you did, Daniel, it was calculated. It was cruel." Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of defiance in his gaze. "Cruelty is relative, Rachel," he retorted. "You think you're the only one who suffered? You think I didn't feel the pain of betrayal?" Rachel shook her head, tears welling in her eyes despite her efforts to remain composed. "This isn't about who suffered more," she insisted. "It's about what you did to us, to our family." Silence descended upon them, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths and unresolved resentments. Rachel took a shaky breath, her resolve hardening with each passing moment. "I need to understand," she said quietly, her voice filled with a mixture of anguish and determination. "I need closure, Daniel. Please." For a long moment, Daniel regarded her in silence, his expression unreadable. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of the world, he relented. "Fine," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll tell you everything." And so, in the hushed confines of that cafe, amidst the wreckage of their shattered dreams, Daniel began to unravel the tangled web of lies and deceit that had torn their marriage asunder. He spoke of ambition and insecurity, of secrets buried deep beneath the facade of their outwardly perfect life. With each revelation, Rachel's heart broke a little more, the pieces of their fractured relationship falling into place with agonizing clarity. She listened, her mind reeling with the enormity of what he revealed, betrayals both past and present, choices made in the name of self-preservation and misguided pride. But amidst the pain and regret, there was also a flicker of understanding, a glimpse of the man she had once loved, flawed and imperfect though he may be. In his words, Rachel found a measure of closure, a semblance of peace amidst the chaos he had wrought. As they parted ways that evening, each burdened with the weight of their shared history, Rachel knew that their journey was far from over. But she also knew that in confronting the truths that had driven them apart, she had taken the first tentative steps toward healing, toward reclaiming the pieces of herself that had been lost along the way. In the aftermath of her confrontation with Daniel, Rachel found herself standing at a crossroads, a precipice from which two paths diverged, each fraught with its own risks and uncertainties. The choice before her was stark: to succumb to the allure of revenge or to forge a path toward healing and redemption. The wounds of Daniel's betrayal still festered within her, raw and unhealed. The urge for vengeance burned like a relentless flame, fueled by the pain and humiliation he had inflicted upon her. She could envision it clearly, the satisfaction of watching him suffer as she had suffered, of reclaiming a semblance of power in the wake of his calculated cruelty. But revenge, she knew, was a double-edged sword, a fleeting satisfaction that promised only hollow victory in its wake. As Rachel grappled with her conflicting emotions, a voice of reason whispered within her, a reminder of the person she had once been, the values she had once held dear. She sought solace in moments of quiet reflection, drawing strength from the unwavering support of a few loyal friends who refused to abandon her in her darkest hour. They reminded her of the resilience that lay dormant within her, of the capacity to rise above the ashes of her shattered dreams and forge a new path forward. And so, with a steely resolve born of hardship and heartache, Rachel made her decision. She would not be defined by the bitterness of revenge, nor the shackles of resentment. Instead, she would reclaim her life on her own terms, seeking closure and forgiveness rather than perpetuating the cycle of pain. She began the arduous process of rebuilding, a journey that was as much about self-discovery as it was about healing old wounds. She immersed herself in her work, channeling her energies into projects that ignited her passion and reaffirmed her sense of purpose. But even as Rachel forged ahead, the specter of Daniel's betrayal lingered in the shadows, a haunting reminder of the complexities of human relationships and the fragility of trust. Their divorce proceedings unfolded with a quiet determination, each step a testament to the resilience she had cultivated in the face of adversity. As the days turned into weeks and then months, Rachel found herself gradually letting go of the anger and resentment that had threatened to consume her. She embraced the lessons learned from the wreckage of her marriage, finding solace in the knowledge that forgiveness was not a sign of weakness but of strength. And yet, amidst the quiet resolve of her newfound independence, a part of Rachel still wondered about the consequences of betrayal, the ripple effects that echoed through the lives of those left in its wake. She knew that Daniel, too, bore the scars of their shared history, his path forward marred by regrets and what-ifs. The ending of their story was not one of neat resolutions or tidy epiphanies. Instead, it left readers with a lingering curiosity about the complexities of human relationships, about the choices we make in the name of love and the consequences that follow in their wake. For Rachel, the journey toward resolution was far from over. But as she gazed toward the uncertain horizon, she found comfort in the knowledge that she had chosen the path of healing, a path that promised not perfection, but the possibility of redemption and renewal. And in that quiet resilience, she discovered a strength she had not known she possessed, a strength that would carry her forward, one step at a time, toward a future defined not by betrayal, but by the enduring power of forgiveness and self-discovery.